Hello, my name is Shay Klingbill, and I'm the Alaska State Director for MUFON. I was asked recently if animals show up in UFO cases. The answer is yes, and the study of this is actually one of my specialties within the Broadstream ufology research and investigation that I do. I find these cases to be diverse and deeply unsettling, and I'm very interested in the impacts on the animals across all quadrants. I want to briefly share a few cases with you today that had well-documented animal behavior and encounter info in them. Each case is very intriguing and deserves its own deep dive and discussion. So we very likely will circle back to that at some point. The first case that I want to share with you is actually one we did a discussion on a couple weeks ago, the Bentwaters and Windlesham Forest incident that took place in 1980 in England. In this case, farm animals were reported to have gone into a frenzy during the course of these events, and it actually impressed Lieutenant Colonel Hutt so much that he recorded it in his memo to the government. And witnesses also described wildlife grew extremely quiet throughout the night. And that is a theme that we see pop up over and over again, and I can actually personally attest to the fact that wildlife will grow quiet during seasons of high strangeness or UFO encounters. The next instance that I want to bring up is deeply unsettling and rather horrific, and you've very likely heard of them, the cattle mutilation wave that began in the 1970s and is still going on to the present and occurs most often in the U.S. Midwest and West. So beginning in the 1970s, thousands of cattle were found with precise incisions, soft tissue removed, and no blood at the scene. These were often accompanied by helicopter or silent aerial craft sightings, electromagnetic anomalies, and animals avoiding the area afterwards. One of the most famous cases occurred in 1967 in Colorado and is the Snippy the Horse case. These cases all remain unexplained today. If you're familiar with the show Skinwalker Ranch, they actually had a cow mutilation on that show as well, and they went into some research and investigation for that. Next, we have the Kentucky Goblins, the Hopkinsville incident, which occurred in 1955, and witnesses said that their farm animals were panicked, particularly the dogs and the horses. The dogs reportedly refused to approach the farmhouse and hid under the structure during the encounter. So animal fear is one of the strongest consistencies in that case, and you see it pop up over and over again during the deep dive into that. In Playa del Carmen, Mexico, in 2004, we had a UFO and dog paralysis case. Witnesses described a luminous sphere that hovered above the house. The family dog became paralyzed, unable to bark or move until the object left. We can only imagine the terror of that animal. The good news is that the dog appears fully recovered and was fine afterwards. This type of temporary physiological shutdown does appear in multiple reports worldwide. Another case of remarkable incidents is the Hessdalen lights in Norway, the reindeer and bird behavior case. Researchers have noticed that reindeer and elk avoid the area where the lights frequently appear. Birds go silent during active nights, and some farms report livestock become highly agitated before major light displays. The Hessdalen lights remain one of the world's most investigated UAP hotspots, and the animal reactions are consistent enough to have become a part of a long-term data set. I would personally really like to go and study that phenomena for myself, maybe someday. And this brings us to the Zimbabwe area school encounter that occurred in 1994. And while this case mostly focuses on the children's testimony, some research was documented on the animals. Nearby farm animals became unusually still, and birds in the area reportedly went quiet during the encounter. Silence in wildlife is definitely a reoccurring theme in UFO close encounters. And taking a look at cases up here in Alaska and next door in Canada, wildlife reactions for moose have been reported that moose will flee into icy rivers during the sightings. That is not great. And the Yukon giant UFO sighting, which occurred in 1996, had multiple hunters reporting the dogs whining and refusing to track, and wildlife in the area went silent for nearly an hour. And Alaska bush pilots have also reported encounters that dogs at remote cabins reportedly sense objects before humans do, and I can personally attest to that. And the Portage Valley lights, over a course of multiple years, bears and coyotes are observed suddenly going quiet when the lights appear. So there are definite periods of high strangeness up here in Alaska and next door in Canada that involve animals. So we see consistent high strangeness with animals reacting to entities before the humans see them. Pets have become ill or fatigued after close encounters, and animals often stare at empty areas where witnesses later see beings. So that's just a broad stream roundup of how animals often behave during UFO encounters and some of their experiences. We can definitely go into this more in the future, but I hope that answers your question a little bit. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.